I'm using Utrecht gesso to go over this ceramic pitcher that I'm going to use. And I'm just doing this first so I can let it dry. And I will put a couple of layers of gesso on this. But I'll let the layers dry completely between. Now, this is a inkjet print from a bunch of dishes that I collected from the late 17th century to the mid 18th century. And I have various sizes. Some of them are platters, some are dishes. The first one I'm going to make is a platter. And I'm just going to cut this out. It's just plain paper, but it was printed at high resolution. And I'm going to place it on this little platter. It's actually just a doll dish. First I'm going to coat it though with the gesso and let that dry. I'll give it a couple coats. Of course, this is speeded up so that you don't have to wait for it to dry. And you don't have to be bound watching me paint this stuff too long. I'll give it a couple of coats of this burnt sienna paint, which is matte finish. And there it is. And then the next thing I'm going to do is put Mod Podge on the paper and then on the dish. And this is very easy. It's one way of doing it. And I'll just press that in all the way around until there's no wrinkles or air bubbles left. You can see the one I did, my test one up on the left, and it actually turned out pretty well. I think there's one little wrinkle on that one. And I was much more careful with this one, and I did manage to get all the wrinkles out of it. And this is just a bookbinding tool, which is very smooth. And you could just use the back of your fingernail, too, to do this, if you don't have a bookbinding tool. And there's the first one that I made. I just put some museum wax and some waste wood. And I put triple thick on it, which is what I'm going to do now. I let it dry for about an hour. And I'm going to apply the triple thick. Now, you might need 2 coats. Some of these I only needed 1 coat, others I needed 2. But on the back, you don't need to put 2 coats. Unless you want to. Okay. And these are similar to the other dishes that I use. They're just doll dishes that are cheap. Now I'm going to make some out of paper, and well, actually what this is chipboard, but it's not really thick chipboard. I dipped it in water, let it soak, and now I'm using another doll dish, which is porcelain, as the mold. So I'm just going to press it in. Now I tried doing this pressing in with the circles that I had, and then I didn't find they worked very well. So I just went ahead and took a doll dish from a 1/12 size scale set, and this seemed to work out much better for me. You certainly could use those circle measures and push it down if you wanted to. You could make your own mold for it. But this worked out real well. And you see there it is. It's all dry. And I just cut it out of the chipboard. And I'm going to put a layer of gesso, but I'm only going to put 1 layer on this one. I'm not going to cover it with 2 coats. And then I will let it dry and I will start to paint it. First, give it a little sand here and there, even it out, and if there's any scruffy edges, they'll come off. And it looks pretty good. I might have to press it a little more, just to make sure it's flat. And it is, it's fine. And that's the paint I'm using. It's a matte finish. I'm just going to lay out some other paints here for the project as it goes along, but the only paint I'm going to use on that little paper dish is going to be this burnt sienna, which is very close to the color of the clay in the image, the red clay. So I'll just give this a couple coats. This does take 2 or 3 coats. Some of them I got away with 2 coats, others I had to put 3 coats on. Okay, and there I've got another one. This one's dry now. And I'm just going to give it another sand. And there, and I'll have to coat that again. I'll give it another coat of paint. And it will dry very quickly. This matte paint dries rather quickly, so you don't have to wait too long. And I'll start with the first coat on the next one. I ended up making quite a few of these, but I'm not going to show them all. And there's the second coat that I'm putting on already, and that will have to dry. And you can see I made another one. I made one already. I'm going to make the second one now out of paper. And this is the same principle. You're just going to use Mod Podge. But instead of putting it on the paper this time, you're just going to put it on the dish itself. I'm just going around making sure that it's flattened. And then I'm using actually the luster Mod Podge. So just put it on the dish nice and evenly. It doesn't have to be real thick. You don't want the paper to tear. And place it. And then you're just going to go around and using this tool and smooth it. Both ends I've used. You could use a larger one, whatever you're comfortable with. I know they come in many sizes, these ball-ended tools. And there. And now I just have to let that dry. Make sure the edges are clean. And then I will put triple thick on it as soon as it's completely dried. Isn't that cute? And there again is what I had a piece of chipboard and I cut them out from that, and I'm now going to just put a layer. Now this one actually did take 2 layers. I think it just sunk into the chipboard quite a bit. I actually ended up putting 2 layers of triple thick on these. But the one I put on porcelain, I think I only had to use 1 layer. Of course, it wouldn't sink in, so. All right. And now I have some others that I'm going to be working on, and these are just wet right now. And I painted one burnt umber, and I'm using another design. And this was a very popular design at the time, and many of these dishes were made in England, and of course they brought that here, Wales, England, even Germany. And these slipware dishes stayed popular well into the 19th century. And this is another color that was very popular, which was this very dark brown, but in this case I'm using burnt umber. And again, I just put a layer of the Mod Podge on. I'm pushing this in with my hand first, and then I'm going to use the ball tool. And this one is a little bit larger. I just wanted to experiment with the larger one. And both of them actually I found worked about the same. And just go around and press it in and make sure there's no wrinkles. Make sure the plate is the correct shape. Go around the back again. And there. Now this would not have been the dishes that the wealthy would own. Poor people and middle-class people would have had dishes that were decorated like this. And they're rather naively decorated, or in some cases it looks like it was hurriedly done. It wasn't something they spent a lot of time decorating. And you can see there I have one with a horse and rider. And that was a very popular theme. It's actually a king. I'm not sure which king it's supposed to represent. I'll have to look more into the history of this. And now that needs some time to dry, and I will have to put another layer on. But I thought I'd show it to you ahead of time. Now I'm using a plastic bowl that I had. It's just plastic. And I'm making a pudding mold. And I'm doing the same thing, I'm just putting the gesso on. And this one is going to be a custard cup. And again, I'll probably make quite a few of these. The custards were very popular during that time. And that's going to be a pudding cup. And that's a tankard. And this is a little large, but it works. They did have very large tankards rather, not tankers. And I'm putting the first coating of paint on after the gesso has dried. And these I'm going to hand paint myself. I'm not putting decals on. And these are some of the colors that I'm going to use. Mixed together to form, again, matching the colors of the time that were popular. So it's a combination of Sunny Day, pumpkin, and a white matte paint. And this is all apple barrel paint. And there again is the burnt sienna. And I'm just going to put polka dots in it. Polka dots were very popular. There's a lot of dishes that I looked at, and they were random polka dots. Most of them, there wasn't any real pattern that they were laid down in most of the time. And on the outside, I'm going to put a very popular squiggle pattern that I saw a great deal of, using that same paint that I mixed up with the pumpkin and the Sunny Day color and white. And if I make some mistakes, I can always go back and correct them if I think it's a mistake. And there's the custard cup again. Now I'm giving it its first coat of paint. And that's another pudding dish, pudding mold. I ended up doing a couple of each, but in the end I'll just show you the ones I like the best. And I'm painting the outside of it that same lighter color. And these will have to have a couple of coats of paint on them. And here's a tankard. I made a couple of these too. And I also have some smaller tankards that I will use later on, because I'm by no means finished with this project as far as the amount that I'm going to need. And the inside will be a different color. Sometimes they would paint the insides darker and vice versa. I'm just mixing up another little batch of paint. And I'll just go around and touch up again. I found that I had to give 3 layers on the plastic of paint. I sanded the plastic in some cases, and in other cases I just gessoed it. And this is a little wooden pot that I found, and I don't know what it was for. It's kind of shallow, but I decided to decorate that as well and use it as a vessel of some kind. I saw similarly shaped ones in my search for designs. And I'm just going to put a stripe design and then maybe some dots in between the stripes. So you don't have to be, a great painter to do this. I think just about anybody can make these kinds of designs, and that's authentic. So, and the same with the tankard. I'll put a design on the outside. I saw a lot of them that had initials on them. Men in those days often would have a tankard at a local tavern. Their initials would be on it, and that would be the tankard they used when they came in. It would be put on a shelf, and when they came in, they would call for their tankard. Their initials would be on it, and their ale or their cider would be served in their own tankard. So I did try to make the lettering look like it was of the time period. So you might have to practice that a little bit. And so TMS, Thomas Milton whatever. make up a name. And there it is. And then I'll touch that up a little bit more later. And here's a custard cup. When I was working at Greenfield Village all those years ago, I'd work at the counter and took the money, basically. And I did take pottery in one of my undergraduate classes, and I knew how to make both slab pottery, molded pottery, and also work on a wheel. But when I was working at Greenfield Village, the potter there wouldn't let anybody help him. But I did buy some of his custard cups, and they kind of look like that. And I still have one. I should have showed a picture of it. All the rest of them broke. That is a pudding cup with 2 handles on it. So you could turn it out. It's kind of like a mold, and I suppose you could use it for other things too, but just going to put a simple design on that and finish this off by putting triple sec over it. This was that bowl that I showed you earlier. And I just have some museum wax built up on this ring. And you don't want to put triple thick on the bottom. You want that, you cut it off the wax and then leave the bottom, the matte paint. So it has a very flat surface on it. And I'll just quickly go through some of these and divide up some of that wax so I can make use of that museum wax so that I don't have to open up the jar again, and just do both at the same time. And I think I only had to put 1 coat of this on the plastic stuff, the triple thick. It's the paper I was needing to actually put quite a bit more on. I may have given this actually a 2nd coat anyway, just to make it look a little more glazed, but I actually can't remember right now if I did that or not. Yeah, I guess I did. I did do that. I did put a couple of layers on it because the plastic was a bit thinner than I liked it to be. I wanted it to have a little more heft to it. And that's the custard cup again. Okay, and the tankard. And as I said, when they would go to a tavern, they would often have a cup there ready for them. It would just be theirs, and the barkeeper or the barmaid would get it for them and fill it up with whatever they wanted, cider, which is hard cider in those days, or ale. Common people didn't drink wine very often. It was too expensive, and the kind of wine they had was fortified and not very good. It was fortified to keep. I am putting a 2nd coat on this one too. I did end up doing that because it was wooden and it kind of soaked in. Okay, and here's some other pots that I had. I don't need to gesso this because it has a matte finish on it, so I just have to give it a couple of coats of paint. And this is sort of a ginger jar shape, this vase or pot, and this sort of shape could have been used for a number of things. They would have put wooden lids on if they didn't have a ceramic lid, or they might have put a calf's bladder or sheep's bladder that was cleaned and stretched out and tied with a piece of leather around the small end at the top to preserve food. And often they would pour some kind of melted lard onto the food so the air didn't get to it, and then it would put that bladder seal on it. This is a chamber pot, and this was just a coffee cup from a larger set of 1/6 size, but it was just the right size for a chamber pot. And it's not an old piece. And here I'm just painting some details on this ginger jar shaped pot or vase. I tried to make this video as short as possible because it was many hours long, and I have gotten it down to around 30 minutes. So, and it is speeded up, as I said, but not drastically speeded up. And this is another design I saw a lot of, this sort of half circle into another half circle, almost like a chain. And I'm putting a date on this. I saw a lot of dates on pottery and names and sayings. So this one has a date, 1740. I'm just going to clean it up. There, and I do clean it up a little bit more so that 4 is a little more visible after a while, but you'll see that. And I'm going to put a little bit of that green in. And I tried to match all the colors to the antique pottery, so I'm using the colors that I saw as I was researching this slipware to keep it authentic. And trying to mimic the designs that I also saw. I'm just putting some more of that green in here and there. Give it a little line around the top. Thinking about making some bean pots as well, and they would have been a heavier, bigger pot for baking beans. And often, if you lived in a village or a town, you might not have had your own oven, and you would take it to much of your stuff to be baked for you by the baker. But these people have their own means of baking, so in this log home that I'm going to make. There's one that I finished, and there's one that, and this one needs to dry and have some triple thick. I keep wanting to call it triple sec. Shows you where my mind is. Triple thick. And I'm giving this chamber pot another coat of paint. And this pot now is getting its triple thick layer. I just try to make sure I get it fairly even. But this stuff does have a way of leveling itself out, you see, when it dries. So that's it when it's cured, rather. And now the chamber pot is going to get some decoration. And this will go under that rope bed that I made previously. They would have had an outhouse too, as well as chamber pots. One of the buildings that's still on my grandfather's farm, that's what's left there, is the outhouse. It's still there. They kept it, or my second cousin kept it, who owns the property now. And it's kind of funny. My dad used to talk about having to clean out the latrine. Can't imagine what that's like. Now this is another plastic bowl that I found in my stash of stuff, and I'm going to paint that with a couple layers of gesso. And then I'm going to use the same colors for this. I'll have to give it a couple layers. as I've been using, which is the burnt umber and burnt sienna. And I decorated it already, and now it's dry, and I'm giving it a coat of triple thick. And here's another tankard. I sanded this one first. It had some nubs on it and rough stuff and a seam, so I had to sand. So I ended up sanding it all the way around, and now I'm giving it a layer of gesso. And now it's getting its burnt umber. I painted its designs, and this one I didn't put initials on. So this is just a plain tankard. It has that design in the front that's kind of spidery, which I noticed lots and lots of pieces of pottery had that kind of design. And now here's another jug with a smaller opening at the top, probably used for oil or vinegar. And I painted initials on this one. And now I'm going to give it a coating of triple thick. And these are some of the ones that are finished. You already saw that one. You've seen that one, but I thought I'd show it to you. Needs a little more drying time on that one. And that. And this was plastic too, and I did this one. A little bit different type of color. And there again is that same one. I think it was like the first one I did. Very easy to do. This one is on the ceramic and not on the paper. There's a wrinkle in it. That was my first one, and I wasn't as careful with it, or I didn't see it. That was the second one I made. And there's still a couple of little wrinkles in it, but you can't see them from far away. Less wrinkles. There's the chamber pot. That's just made from a regular doll set, tea set, but it looks a lot like the chamber pots I saw when I was doing my research. So that's the original cup, one of them. So I just used that, one of them. Not really old or valuable or anything. I think you can still buy those sets. It's even a little too large for Barbie, but it makes a nice chamber pot. And that's one of the jars. Was one of the first ones I finished for the ginger jar shape. And there's the one with the date. Fun to make this stuff. Easy, fun, pretty satisfying. There's a plastic bowl. That was originally plastic with the same design, squiggle design as some of the others have, and polka dots inside. And there's the jug for, you could put wine in it, you could put oil, vinegar, that kind of thing. It would have had a cork in the top, probably. I'll have to find a cork for that. And there's that design that I saw. I've seen that design quite a bit, that sort of spidery design. So I put it on the tankard. Let's see if you can, there it is. This is the step back cupboard that I made, and I will be having that film out next week on how I made that. But I wanted to show the pottery on it. So look for the video on the step back cupboard next week sometime. Monday or Tuesday, I think I'll be finished with the editing. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Bye-bye.